engineering, and the basics is hardware, and that's just represents what we did on the new Lexion Combine. And connecting those folks with what we have as a treasure in telematics, and it was already referred to in the last speech, that is a challenge. And then also join the right techniques, which is, for instance, as an example, nobody raised that, is Tableau, what we use in the company. And that brings a lot of challenges. And engineers normally have an opinion. And facts and feelings. If engineers have an opinion and data are against these opinions, it's a tough game. I tell you, they do presentations 10 slides long to go away from data, and then to feed this together takes a lot of time. So we work with a lot of things, but still you can do the job without the IoT stuff. And if you look at the product outside, right, we started with that in a very early phase in 2010. And we got the first functional prototypes out in 2012, all camouflage. You would not see it outside that something completely new is inside. But we started really to get more digital data to it in 15. So in that time, half of that development was already done. And one is we need to educate the people. We have to employ data scientists. And right now in Germany, if you want to hire a data scientist, you won't get it on as a workforce. So what we do is now we have a digital agenda internally. So we educate the existing people, selected ones, native guys who really want to start with it, who raise the fingers, we want to be involved in this. And the game changer, it has been raised, but it is important to understand that the game changer is the GPS. The GPS basically allows us and the farmers, both, to understand what action has been taken, at what time, at what point, where in the world. That's a revolution internally. It has been there for a long time, but with the data management we have available today, this really turns into a value, also for farmers. Now, we heard that, but how many farmers are using this today? That's the critical question. And I would say in Germany it's the 80-20. It's 20% are using it, 80% not. And if you look at the economical bottom line of farms, you can see that the same farm size, let's say 300 hectares, the bottom line result is different by 30-40%. They have the same equipment. So there is a different way of managing this. Now this is what you know. So you can really get to different positions. You know what they do. That's exactly what we do with telematics. And when we see this, that there is something very interesting, we can bring a log file to this machine. So then we can get the data every second and everything what the machine does. We're not right now sending everything through the air, but a lot of information. I think that word was raised in the first speech with this industrial complex, a digital twin. Do we have a digital twin right now for this new Lexion? We're working on it. It has started later in the project, but the digital twin really is a big tool for us to simulate everything what we want to change, especially for our service approach down the road to enable even unexperienced guys to do operations that they have never perhaps been trained for. The message is not, we're not training our service guys anymore, right? Don't take that away. But we can speed this up dramatically. And perhaps that's the transition into my partner's speech. Product management in the old way is we're traveling somewhere, that's fine. We're asking a farmer, what's your opinion? And then he gives his view on it. What we are currently able already to see how he's acting with certain equipment and what he's doing. So there is an interest from our side, but on the other hand, there's an interest from the farmer. And then this is perhaps a little bit your role.
Morning, everyone. I'm going to walk around because I can't stand still. I don't like being in an office, and I'm like a typical farmer. Yeah, they don't like technology typically when it means they're chained to a PC. And none of us like to be in that position. Generally, we like to be outside. So, as Joe alluded, we generate a huge amount of data, and we have been doing it for a long time. And we started with telematics, which is effectively a telemetry system on our machines, which will deliver data to the customer. We started with that as a working product 15 years ago. And we looked at it purely at the start as a way of making our machines more efficient, or providing the information for our customers to become more efficient. So the system was built around looking at idle times, what are you actually doing in these particular cases. And you would take two combines as an example, both cutting 3,000 acres. One finished, and they were neighbours in one example, one finished a week before the other one. So, of course, the guy who finished a week later said my combine was rubbish, didn't really work very well. In reality, he wasted time. What we can't do, and we're very happy from the sales side to sell customers larger machines, but what we can't actually do is sell them more time. But we can make it available to them by providing them with the data. And that's where we started. We then started to deliver to our customers agronomic data as well, and typically yield maps or task data, maps from drills that are attached to a tractor. So we start to provide the information, not via a stick, but via telematics, so it makes it easier to transfer to the likes of Omnia, which Oliver was talking about earlier on, which makes it more accessible to the customer. Unfortunately today, there's a large proportion of arable farmers in the UK who do not make any use of the data. Why not? Typically because I don't want to be chained to the PC, I'm still making money. How much money are you making? What's your cost of production? Don't know, I'll wait till the end of the year when the accountant tells me. It works today for them. Will it work moving forwards? Probably not. You have a typical customer. Obviously he's German because he's wearing dungarees. And obviously we all know that German agricultural people wear dungarees. And he has lots of questions. If you've been there and worked with the Germans at the factory, you'll know exactly what I mean. But fundamentally, the customer wants to be more efficient. Whether that means he wants to spend less hours on his machines, or whether he wants to increase his yields or reduce his input costs, fundamentally has all these questions. And only data, to a degree, can provide that information. And whether we talk big data or not, I mean, depends where you're looking at big data from. You can look at big data in terms of UK farming PLC, or you can look at a field, as Oliver alluded to in the last presentation, many thousands of data points for one particular field. But the biggest data of all, and actually the thing that makes the difference in some cases between make or break, is actually what goes on around the farm, i.e. the weather. And if we could genuinely predict the weather properly, and I know that on this island it's a real challenge, and we are now talking about, I would say, vast data, not big data. If we could predict the weather really properly, we would then be in a position to say, do you apply fertilizer today because tomorrow it's going to rain, or do you not bother at all because there's going to be no rain between now and harvest? And that will make a huge difference to the bottom line. But when it comes to the data, are customers prepared to share data? Typically today, no. They will share it with another provider of theirs, like the likes of Omnia and so on. If they do share it, where should it go? And how should it be used? And this is where the trust starts to come in. But the majority of customers, they're unwilling to share their data, let's say publicly. because who's going to process the data? But they have to be able to make that decision, because the most important message, really, many of our competitors deliver lots of data, and they say it's their data because it's come from their machines. We have a very different view. The data belongs to the man who owns and runs the machine, i.e. the customer, because it is, after all, their data, and they need to make that decision. So now Joe is hopefully going to come back, and we will let him finish off. Thank you.
Okay, so back to the machinery business. As much as this is a treasure for the farmers, as much this is a treasure for our own group. Now, we have some privacy agreements and strict data laws in Germany, so we have to negotiate with farmers on different levels how they want to share data with us, right? And that's what we do. And I raised one picture that is already an internal revolution unconsciously. This, what you see here over smartphones, we can now see a picture that happens in Esperance, Australia on the harvest within a minute. So our engineers can see this. Even they can make a video live and share this. This was impossible 5 years ago or 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it would take us 24 hours to exchange the picture and the data. Sometimes you need to see the crop, the incident, and all that. Now, this is still not organized. It's an unorganized way. We have no data files for pictures and automized systems behind it, internal level on the company, right? Because sometimes you need to see the crop flow to understand what really goes on, if I'm in particular on the combine side. And I don't know if it starts. It starts?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So these are data points, and you see the south harvest is going on. This is back in 2010. Summer in Europe, you see the data points. Winter in Europe, South America is back in harvest. We had no telematics in North America at that time, so that's why it is blind. Again, gives you just an impact. It's 11. We're changing into Christmas. We're in 2012, spring, June, July, August. European harvest, North America is coming, South America, Australia is in action. You see some spots in South Africa, close to Dar es Salaam, where there's a big rice operation. And it goes on. You cannot see it, it's on the right top corner. 14, we're getting into summer 14. July, August, full-scale harvest, and we got tractors also, so that's the reason now you get points also in the wintertime. We're in 15, summer 15, fall 15, 16, we're in spring 16, we're getting into summer. Okay, so this gives you an impression of what we can see, right? Even if somebody don't know, do we have a combine in South America? We can get a click and we can see what the combine does. We can see the location, we can see the ground speed, we can see the settings of the machine if we have a negotiation with this farmer, right? And that is now used also in the development in an organized way. And one question is always in the company, are we getting bigger? Who is following the farm business knows we are getting always bigger. The biggest combine of this new generation has 790 horses just by the engine power. The 480 that we introduced 20 years ago was at 367 horsepower. So we basically doubled that. And the question is, does that make sense? Now, the airline industry has reached the top. This Airbus is not in production anymore. The Boeing 747 is out of production. So I don't know how we proceed. Now, let's look at data. That's just an example. What you see here on the very right side are engine hours of combines, and then you see what they do, average ground speed. You see they're around 5 k's per hour on the ground speed. You see the yield. If you connect ground speed to yield, you could anticipate If they are slow, the yield should be high, or the other way around. Is there a logic? So this can be done with Tableau. It's just a choice of data. And then you can look on the very right side, what's the engine load? How much is the engine used? You see it's not used very much. This is good for us, bad for the customer. So we have to really educate the customer that they use their equipment appropriately. One other example, a typical operation of a combine is that it folds out the unloading auger, right? And the question is, how often is this done? Now, on the right side, you see the solution. It is an average is 6. You see the top machine, I put it in purposely, it's 11. This walks out. So you need to investigate why is that happening 11 times an hour. So you can see this then, is it corn or high-yielding stuff? That gives you then an answer, how much steel, how much stuff needs to be invested into this particular system. And then we run as a twin simulations. If we get a digital twin, we would run simulations to see does that work or does that not work. Now this is easy to say. On the other hand, it takes a lot of argumentation from my side. I call it always electronic warfare. If you are with these engineers and you talk of communication, push-pull messages, how many, and it is expensive and the lifetime is short. A combine lives for 10 years, an electronic piece lives for 2 or 3 years. So you need to be very, very speedy, and software consumes a lot of money to produce it. So that's a little bit the conflict between the two sides, and rebalance this is important for us for the future to be very, very successful. So this is just a picture that we are on a transition, right? Nobody is using this like an old library, but it is not black and it's not white. And that is our approach here internally in the company. We really want to educate it internally. We go from a level to the next level. We need consistency on our industrial side, and that was raised already, farming 4.0. This is the farming size, and they also have to do this something on their side. Education, that they understand also that the individual farmer, how much worth is the data he has, and where does he share the data to. So bottom line is, in our company and in a lot of companies, does it improve bottom line result? And there was a quote from at the beginning, you cannot see the progress in 1 year, you need 10 years. Now, if I'm asked for economical things, I have a period of 3 years. So otherwise, I get into trouble to argue for it if I start a project. So sustainability needs to be there, regulations need to be reflected in the right way. Integrity is for me important, and it should not create problems. Now, sometimes it creates problems because people have no knowledge. You really need to know and understand what kind of problems are there. Okay, thank you very much.